Mystery. At all times, it lingers around us, whispering in the depths of understanding, calling us to lean in further, to explore more, to ask the big questions. Faith and fact, certainty and the unknown. Can they dance with one another to not be at odds? Revealing the divine mystery at work in creation and embedded in all of existence. Unfolding that which is not seen, but always has been. I wonder.
Wow! Love you. My wife and I have been married for about 10 years. We got the big decade coming up pretty soon. And it would be a common thing for her to come home to me after, like, if she's hanging out with friends or something at night, and she comes home and there's me. I've got the kids in bed. I've cleaned up, did dinner and all that, and now I'm sitting on the couch with my hot Cheetos and some ramen, and on the TV, I have a YouTube video about science or about space or something like that, just because I'm kind of a nerd and I like science and space. So leave me alone. I think it's fascinating, but she always walks in and she's like, "What kind of nerd stuff are you watching?" And I'm like, it's cool. She's like, "I'll be in the other room." It kind of just goes like that. But I love space so much that I saved up a little over $2,000 because that's just how much tattoos cost. And I got deep space tattooed all across my chest. And so this is my chest right now as we currently sit. And I did this to celebrate finishing seminary school, which is like Bible school. You know, like I got my degree in theology and Christian education, and to celebrate that, I was like, you know what I want to do? Get a massive tattoo, which is controversial in and of itself. But the fact that it's got deep space on it is another layer to that. It's like you got trained as a pastor, and you got a tattoo of deep space. You love God and science. How does that even make sense? How does that even work? Because aren't these two things at odds with one another? And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about for the next 3 weeks in our series called I Wonder, because we all wonder about these things. The things that we're learning in physics and chemistry and biology and science and in school, and the things that we're learning about here in church or as we read the Bible and in our faith journey, and these two things that seem to sort of contradict or clash. There's tension there. So we just want to invite the conversation and do that over the next few weeks, hopefully to ultimately discover that these two things are not actually at odds with one another after all. They can support one another and work well together and actually even help us understand the other even better. So that's the idea. Y'all down? Okay, cool. This is a new laptop, and it's not new I've had it for a while, but it's new to me, and it's newer than the old one that I had. I had a laptop for years before this one, and if you had seen my previous laptop, you would have seen this picture, because it was my wallpaper for years. Not that, that picture. You would have seen that picture, this is a photo that inspired me. It challenged me. It was one of my favorite things. Does anybody know what this is? The what? The cosmic plan? Does anybody else know what this is? Cosmic web, okay. The mitochondria? Purple sponge, could be. Hey, you are a cheater. You were here in the first service. That's somebody's foot. Hey, if that's your foot, you got problems. Ooh, yeah, she's got bunions. She's got a lot of stuff going on. She's got corn, and it has the juice. I don't like it. This is, as someone spoiled it for us, thanks a lot. This is a simulated, computer-generated image of the observable universe, the cosmic web. You were right. So if you were to Google the observable universe, everything basically in all of existence, this is one of the images that would come up. Now, to understand how that is, because you're like, that doesn't look like how I thought it would look. So to understand what you're looking at, we've got to kind of take a couple of steps back and understand some other things first. So let's bring it all the way back down to Earth, literally. Let's think about the planet we are on right now. So the planet Earth is pretty big compared to us. Like, in fact, if you were to get on a commercial airliner and fly all the way around it, go hundreds of miles per hour, it would take you between 45 and 55 hours just to go around it one time. Now, Earth, being as big as it is one of 8 planets in our solar system, which is sort of a collection of planets that all orbit around because of the gravitational pull of a star that we call the sun. And when you look at Earth compared to Jupiter or Saturn especially, it is very tiny looking. As huge as it is, it's small comparatively. And we are on that thing. Anyone you've ever known, anyone that you've ever heard of, who's ever existed, has existed on that little planet that's in this vast array of planets all orbiting around the sun and this harmony in this system, in this balance that's happening, where we are strategically placed in the perfect environment to sustain life, which is pretty cool. But we're not even that unique, because when you look up at the night sky, you see a lot of other little tiny lights up there, don't you? And those are other suns. We call them stars, right? But there are other suns that all have other planets orbiting around them just like ours does. And you might think, well, what are the odds that there's life on any other planet? Well, the odds are pretty darn good. Because out of all of do you know how many there are in our galaxy? Between 100 and 400 billion. So the likelihood that there is another planet situated just close enough, yet just far enough away from its star to be able to sustain life and evolve it over how long? I don't know. Science would say 13.7 billion years. It's actually pretty good. Light takes, that's the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. Light takes 8.25 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth. If light being the universal speed limit, the fastest thing, I mean, a black hole, it can't escape a black hole, but other than that, light is the fastest thing in the universe. It takes it 8.25 minutes to reach us at Earth, to get to the edge of our solar system, down there where Pluto is, or was, God rest its soul. It would take 555 days. That's how long it would take light. Whenever we zoom out and we look at the galaxy, like I said, between 100 and 400 billion solar systems, billion suns in this galaxy that is our home, it's called the Milky Way, it would take light, the universal speed limit, 100,000 years just to go from one side of it to the other. 100,000 years for light. Now, this galaxy is pretty darn cool, and it's massive, incomprehensibly massive, unfathomably huge. But it's not even that special either. There's a neighboring galaxy that's pretty close relatively to ours. It's called Andromeda. And the Milky Way and Andromeda and other ones are part of a cluster of galaxies that all hang out in like a little neighborhood of galaxies. Whenever we look back at the picture of the observable universe, those galaxy clusters are 1 pixel on this image. So when you look at it, just try to begin to fathom the fact that the lighted up areas, how it looks like a web, are clusters and highways of entire galaxies, which are made up of hundreds of billions of suns each, which are being orbited around by other planets just like ours, and God created it all for us. He sent his only son to this little planet for you to pay the price for the things that we've done wrong so that we don't have to. He cares about you that much to put his power and his magnitude on display for us, just to say that like all of this exists, but you are special and you matter and I see you. And that's why I had it as my wallpaper for years, because it was a reminder of that. And yeah, it looks like it could be something small. It looks like it could be just like some cellular stuff or microscopic stuff. But it demonstrates to me that God is in the infinitesimally large just as much as he is in the microscopically tiny. God is in all of it because he created it all. And it's pretty darn awesome to me that he would want to have a relationship with me. He would want to have a relationship with you. So we're going to talk about the age of the universe in this series. We're going to talk about things like evolution and things like creation and things like miracles and how did a person live 3 days inside of a fish and how did a person die and come back to life and what is the scientific evidence that something like that could possibly happen, and down on a cellular level, like what took place to turn water into wine. Like we want to ask those types of questions. In fact, there's a mailbox out front, and if you have a question that you've always wondered about, whether it comes to God, Jesus, the Bible, or whatever, even science, you can write it, put it in that mailbox, and we'll try to address it specifically on the stage in the weeks to come. But the point is that we're asking questions. The point is that we're being curious, that we're not afraid to ask them, because Jesus, he took on the cross, so you better know he can take on your curiosity. If Jesus took on the cross, he can take on your curiosity. So be curious and ask questions, and don't be afraid. Just throw all your presuppositions out the window, the things that you thought you knew, and let's just learn together for a minute and explore together for a little while. There have been things that you've been taught and you've just believed up to this point because that's what my mom said. Like, it was created in 6 days. Or, yeah, like the whole earth flooded. That's just a fact. That's what I've always known. That's what I've been taught. But really, though? Really? Did you know that people used to live like 800, 900 years in the Old Testament, and now we can't seem to get much further than 100? What happened? What's the science behind that? Who's the God behind that? When we dare to wonder and ask these types of questions, when we dare to dance on the line and in the tension of faith and science, kind of like in the cosmos, we're not alone in that either. In fact, some of the most brilliant minds, the brilliant scientific minds, physicists, biologists, neuroscientists, were also Christians. Did you know that? They knew things that no one else knew about how the world works. And they had a thriving relationship with God. How is that possible? There's people like Albert Einstein. You've heard of Einstein? He has one of my favorite quotes on this topic of all time. He said, "Science without religion is lame." He calls it lame. Science without religion is lame. It's empty. And he says, religion without science is blind. Science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. It gives it substance. It gives it explanation. Another quote, Louis Pasteur, the founder of microbiology and immunology, said, "A little science distances you from God, but a lot of science brings you closer to him." And isn't that true? Another quote is that there's nothing more dangerous than a little bit of truth. Because a little bit can be dangerous, right? But a lot of it will just further reinforce the validity of God. Because like we said last week, when you seek me, you will find me, says the Lord. Another quote, this is William Kelvin. You might have heard about him in science. He's the pioneer of thermodynamics and the inventor of Kelvin's temperature scale. And he said, if you study science deep enough and long enough, it will force you to believe in God. It will be irrefutable. You could not deny the existence of a creator when you examine the creation. And then finally, Dr. Martin Luther King said that science investigates, but religion interprets. Science gives man knowledge, which is power. Religion gives man wisdom, which is control. Science deals mainly with facts. Religion deals with values. The two are not rivals. They are complementary. I think about it like a marriage or a relationship where two different people, two different things, creations, come together to make one that is stronger and better than they were separately. And that's how faith and science work too. That's the dance. So since the top thinkers throughout history have been contemplating the relationship between faith and science, I thought to kind of dive deeper into our time together, we would put this into practice and look at some scripture, okay? But to do that, we've really got to go back to the beginning. And not just the beginning of when people were asking these questions, or like a few hundred years when these guys were in the time of Einstein or Kelvin. We've got to go back to the beginning of everything, of all of creation, and take it back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, when the God of the universe, through Moses, he said, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Now stop. According to the Bible, which is the source of ultimate truth, who created the heavens and the earth? It's not a trick question. God. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So God created. Now, according to the Bible, that same verse, if we were to look at it, how did God create the heavens and the earth? It doesn't say. It just says who did it, not how he did it. And that's because the Bible is not a science book. The Bible is a lot less concerned when it comes to creation with the how, and it's a lot more concerned with the who behind it all and the why. Like, he put his glory and his magnitude on display. It's all for his glory. That's why. Who? God. How? I don't know. It's going to take some human endeavor. It's going to take some research. It's going to take some exploration. And that's what science is. When it's like we're trying to figure out who's really behind it all. Know who's behind it all, but it's like, what was his process like? How did he do it? And that's this endeavor that we're on with science. If you look through everything, through the biblical lens, the lens of God, then it'll all work together, I promise you. Because when you hold a science book up to the Bible doesn't fall apart. It can't. The Bible can never fall apart. It is the Word of God. It's living and active. It's more powerful than anything, stronger than any two-edged sword. You can't take away from the perfect Word of God by the creator and the sustainer of the universe. You think some science or some discovery is going to challenge that or change that? No way. Who do we think we are that we could dismantle what God put in place by some scientific discovery? Everything will support what God has done. Nothing will ever contradict it. So if you've ever wondered any of these things, maybe for you, you're wondering something now. You're like, dinosaurs, though. Like, what do we do with that? Why aren't they in the Bible, man? And like, did Jesus ever see one? They said he rode in on a donkey, but I bet it was really a velociraptor. Like, what do we do with the timeline? What do we do with a lot of these things? I wonder. And if you wonder too, that's a good thing. Don't let anyone tell you it's not. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't explore and ask questions. It's good. Listen, science is the pursuit of understanding our world. And that's cool. But faith is the pursuit of the God who created it all. And you could write that down if you want to or whatever, take a picture. But faith is the pursuit of the God who created it. These things are not diametrically opposed. Both of these things, science and faith, and I don't want to make you a science nerd, by the way. You're like, I don't care. I don't like science. I don't like physics. I don't like biology. I don't like that. It's my least favorite class when I go to school. That's fine. Like, you don't have to like it. I'm just saying it further emphasizes and validates who God is. And like, it's worth at least knowing a little something about. The greatest commandment, does anyone know what this is? When Jesus was asked which of these things is the greatest, he says in Matthew 22, verse 37, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind. These things are mental endeavors. Like, Science, it requires applying the mind. Faith, it requires applying the mind. You love the Lord your God with all of your mind. And the bottom line for this morning really is this: as you explore science, your faith can actually expand. So for some of you, you've hit sort of like this dead end or like a crossroad in your faith, and it might not seem deep enough, and you might just be struggling with connecting with God and not understanding why I can't seem to feel his presence, why I can't seem, why it just doesn't hit me like it seems to hit other people. You might not be a science nerd, but low key, if you started to explore that a little bit and apply some of your mind to it, it might bring your faith to life even more. Your faith might start to expand even more. Whenever, like when I was just talking about space, some of those facts, they're so fascinating. It's so insane that God would do that and then love me. It makes me want to love God even more, just knowing that. But I wouldn't have known it unless I took a little bit of a scientific step, right? So maybe that could be key to deepening your faith too. Just maybe. I don't know. Try it. That's why we're here. 4 things to remember before I leave you this morning. Number 1, be curious. You have the permission, so be curious. I think teenagers are naturally curious, and then as we grow older, we lose this. Like people just stop asking questions and almost stop caring. Like you've probably seen this in some adults. You're like, my parents, stop. But they get complacent and they get comfortable. But everything is so new. It's a whole new world. As a teenager and you're exploring these things, like don't lose that curiosity. Don't lose it. Number 2, embrace wonder and mystery. If you don't know the answer to something, be okay with that. You don't have to know the answer to everything, but continue to wonder and continue to try and continue to explore, right? Number 3, keep learning. One of the strongest compliments that someone ever told me was when you have a learner's heart. I will always remember and cherish that statement. Because I'm not just going to accept things the way that they are, right? I want to continue to always learn more about them because there's always more to learn. I also want to always continue to improve and to grow and to be better. Like Rodney always says, be 1% better, right? And I don't know, like if you grow complacent and you stop and you hit a ceiling or a plateau, you're not learning anymore. And that's the biggest shame in life, I think. Is to stop learning. So be curious, embrace wonder and mystery, keep learning, and finally, expand your faith, whatever it takes. There's this pastor named Andy Stanley, and he said that when we explore science and discover how things work, just a simple response can be, like when you're in science class and they're talking about like evolution or whatever, I don't know or like just these little cosmic process or big cosmic processes, small little electrons and things colliding, and you're like, okay, like this is how things work. A response to that can be, so that's how God does it. That's how God does it. Yeah. But expand your faith, because faith isn't blind. If you hear someone say, I've got that blind faith, I'd say, you're lame. I mean, I didn't say it. Albert Einstein said it. But there are answers to all of the questions that you could ever ask. A lot of them are in the Bible. Some of them might be in science. But I promise you, if you explore both, your faith will grow, your faith will mature, and you'll take steps closer to God.